at this article in the Guardian. As we can see here, it says, "Are the British and Irish really world-beating fruit and veg eaters?" And that the author Devi Sridhar doubts it. So if we go down here, we can see that she's a public health expert. I believe that she was actually advising Scotland's First Minister Nicola Sturgeon during COVID, so she's been quite heavily involved in public health. And she's saying here, "I'm sorry to say that recent eye-catching claims about our diets are probably misleading." Now, I think she's right about that, but what's interesting about the article actually is the non-sequitur, pretty much at the start, which shows rather poor thinking process on her part. So she's referring to some newspapers' headlines claiming that the UK and Ireland were ranked the world's best at eating fruit and veg, and says it's to her this was surprising. It says just on economic grounds, the UK imports 50% of its vegetables and 84% of its fruit. But this is a big non sequitur, because whether we import a lot of our fruit and veg has really got nothing to do with how much of it we actually eat. It's just simply a statement of where we get it from. So I was quite surprised at that, given that this is supposed to be a highly intelligent person. And then she says these foods are relatively expensive in the UK. And then she compares the cost per 1,000 kilocalories against that of processed foods. Now, I'm not really sure that that's actually a relevant comparison, because when people are shopping, they don't normally look at the amount of calories in food. And then said this is at a time of constrained household incomes, and then she gives an example of increase in price of cucumbers because of the recent inflationary problems. So if we look at this, one of the claims here again is that she says these foods are relatively expensive in the UK. Now actually I'm not too sure that that's actually the case. If we go to this this page here, Fruit and Vegetable Price Index 2020, these people here have done a study. So if we look at this, we can see that they've selected a basket of fruit and veg that are commonly found on people's grocery lists, and then they've compared the average prices across countries. Now, one of the things that they've actually done is can't remember where it says it there. Oh yeah, here we go. So to determine affordability based on these prices, we calculated how many hours on minimum wage a citizen in each country would have to work to meet the recommended daily intake of fruits and vegetables for a whole month. So that's actually a pretty good way of looking at see whether fruit and veg is relatively expensive or not. So you can see here the fruit and the veg that they've selected, and then the international results. So there's figures for each of the individual fruit and veg, but the column that we're really interested in is the one on the far right, which is basically the hours of minimum wage to afford a certain amount of fruit and veg. And actually, if we look at this list, actually Britain isn't relatively expensive. If we go down, there's a lot of countries, various parts of the world, India, Thailand, Russia, near the top in terms of relatively expensive. Come down a bit further. So here we go. So number 21 there is Italy. So, they tend to have a fairly Mediterranean diet. And we can see there 5 hours 49 minutes. Portugal, Greece, Spain, Sweden, Belgium, and then we actually hit the UK at number 35. So you can see there it's 3 hours and 3 minutes. So when you look at this international comparison, I know it's only certain countries, but actually the UK compared to other countries in Europe, actually fares reasonably okay. It's a bit more expensive using this measure than say France and Germany and Ireland, and Switzerland and Denmark, but it's cheaper than Norway, Belgium, Finland, Sweden, Spain, Greece, Portugal, Italy. So that claim of hers, I don't think really stands up anyway. I don't know what she was basing it on, because it doesn't give a source for that, or whether she was just assuming that is actually the case. Um, and then if we go down and have a quick look at the rest of the article, makes a point here the UK and Ireland aren't known for having healthiest diets, and Scotland invented the deep fried Mars bar. So it's certainly true that there's a problem of obesity in the UK. I don't know about Ireland, but that would certainly suggest that our diets aren't the best compared to some countries. Um, and then she goes on to look at the study that was reported by various newspapers, and the problem with it, as she explains, I won't go through it in detail, is basically it was self-reported, and she makes a point which is pretty much true, that self-reported surveys about things aren't necessarily true of what people actually do. They don't always report things, how they would actually do it. In this case, eat fruit and veg. But, we can't always take people on their word with this kind of thing. So go down to the bottom here. Yeah. So the UK's major issues in public health, not limited to diets. Yeah, I mean that's pretty obvious for anybody who's been keeping an eye on the news over the years. And then she gives a more reliable measure of health based on height and overall well-being of children. So it's quite an interesting article, but in terms of the kind of things I cover on this channel, the point here is there's a non sequitur at the start, and coming from somebody I believe has got a PhD and is a public health expert, you would expect a kind of better level of reasoning.